Say it again.
UnderRateEd made it.
Hey, look, it might look rough, but the idea's gonna stay fresh, you feel me?
Say it again.
UnderRateEd made
Yes, sir, yes, sir. This is, you already know what this is, but it's not exactly what you think it is. This is something a little different. You gotta excuse my voice. It's a little hoarse. I had a wild weekend, but nonetheless, I'm here. And I got some stuff for y'all, man. I know it's been a while since myself tapped in. But we're gonna do something a little different this time. So as you can see, you could tell by the intro, this is not, and I repeat, this is not a podcast episode. Or is it? I don't know. But we're gonna get into all of that, right? So I want to bring you guys up to date because it's been a while since myself, again, since I've tapped in. Shout out to Quan as always. Shout out to Jazz as always. Nonetheless, let me turn this speaker off because I don't want nothing coming through the speaker. All right, there we go. Nonetheless, where do I start, man? I'll bring you up to date as to how we got here, but I want to start from the top. If you've watched one of my last uploads, not my last upload, but maybe the second to the last upload, I did a little briefing on there and I brought you guys up to date as far as me and Jazz. We just received a bundle of joy. Jacoby Tatum, he's 2 months old now. So he's been with us for 2 months now. Outside of that, we moved to a new city. So we not down in Pennsylvania no more. We not too far, but nonetheless, we not in the same city or town anymore. So that has changed for us. A bunch of other things that I won't get into, but the gist of things changing and why I haven't been as consistent, why we haven't been as consistent in this. The main parts is us, our son coming into the world, you know, Jazz being a new mother, and then also with me moving, just getting adjusted, getting reacclimated with society because it's different, you know, but nonetheless, we gonna get to all of that. One of the things I've done over the, even though we haven't been doing podcasting as much, again, hold on before I go any further, shout out to Rel Jones. When we first moved, we had the opportunity to do 2 recordings, one with Kev Williams, Coach Kev, and then also with Rel. Rel was actually our last upload that we had a chance to drop on a Young Black and Gifted podcast. But as far as myself, besides the changes in my personal life, just trying to figure out how to readjust with this, right? Because we're not in the same town, city anymore. That's grew a distance between even Quan and I. So trying to figure out how we can make that work and continue on. I've talked to Quan and we locked in. Me and Quan locked in. Just because things change for me doesn't mean that things have to change for Quan or that things have to change for the podcast. But nonetheless, we locked in. That's my man. So what I've been doing a lot of is just trying to stay creative, find new ways to remain creative because, again, if you've been with us from the beginning, you saw a certain level of consistency that came along with us doing this. And since then, with all the different changes, that's kind of slowed down. Also, I like to point out that June 28th was our year anniversary. It was a year from the first episode that we had dropped. And since then, we've dropped I think I would have, just going off of like Apple Podcasts, we probably about 66, 65 episodes in. Don't quote me on it, but somewhere in that range. So shout out to the team for that. Everybody that was a part of getting us to that point. Everybody, all our guests. But nonetheless, with life changing and things changing, trying to figure out how to remain consistent in this, So we also want another thing outside of apart from the podcast, we have not so much apart from the podcast, but outside of the podcast, we also have Jazz and I have Black and Ungifted, where she and I basically we team up to do episodes where we talk about things that are pretty much based around either relationship things or just day-to-day things, but more or less it was a way that I figured out that, you know, with all the time Jazz and I spend together, we can continue to be creative. We dropped about 2 episodes. I'll call it 3 episodes, 2 episodes on that. And that's something that I plan on bringing back up too. You know, I've had a lot of time to like think and regroup. And I shared some of my ideas with Jazz. And Jazz is just as excited about moving forward as I am. But how I ended up here. So I've been doing, apart from dropping pre-recorded episodes that I've done, whether it was before I moved out of state, or whether it was things that I did during the time of me being here, I realized again that lack of consistency in just being creative, period. So I spent some time. You gotta excuse me, my voice again is hoarse, but bear with me. I'm going to try to, you know, my voice, outside of my voice being hoarse, is very projective. It projects very well, so I'm gonna try to play off of that. If you guys can get through the horse, then you know we'll get through this whole thing together. Nonetheless, so outside of us doing the recording a lot, I decided to pick the beats up. That was something that I can do at any point of the day, and it didn't require me having to team up with anybody. I mean, unless we talk about me putting them, you know, sending them over to people and them potentially recording on them. Shout out to Keith and Maine as always. Shout out to Kaz the Real, you know, Gaddafi, you know, the huge, you follow me? But as far as creating, I mean, it's something that I can do with myself at any time. So I did a lot of that, trying to find better ways to be more efficient in that, because I'm, you know, for me, I have to be creative. If I'm not being creative, then I feel like I'm wasting time. What are you doing? What are you doing? So I spent a lot of time doing that. And I think the reason why I love this so much is because this can sometimes serve as like therapy, you know. Excuse me. And with that being said, I always got something to talk about. So because I haven't been doing this, I've been needing to find ways to be creative. So once the beat making runs its course, where it's like, you know, I hit a certain peak with that, I'm like, damn, I need to do something. I got to do something. This ain't it. So that's how we ended up here. You know, I came up with this idea. A few other things transpired. I decided to, again, being new neighborhood, new city, new state, you know, just being getting used to being around here. One of the things I do a lot of is I take walks. I like to take walks because they allow me to clear my mind. If I want to be creative, sometimes I do my underrated verses. A lot of the times I've created those. I've done those just walking through the neighborhood. Even before I left where I previously lived at, I did that a lot. I did a lot of walking, but it wasn't utilized as a creative tool as much. It was more like a therapeutic tool. I need to get out the crib. Let me go for a walk, clear my mind. So, you know, same thing where I'm at now. Step away, clear my mind. So one of the things I've done is I've opened up a line of communication with and for myself. I begin to do audio journals. Again, I'm not the biggest reader, you know. My experiences, I mean, my knowledge, a lot of it comes from experiences and sponges, and maybe even other people's experiences, and me being a sponge. But also with writing, it's not my favorite thing to do. Those are all things I can do very well. It's just things that I don't have patience for. Nonetheless, I begin to do the audio journal. Again, I'm a talker. So you got an iPhone, you got the voice memo app on your phone. So I begin to utilize that as my journal. I wake up in the morning, get myself together, cup of coffee, have my smoke, and I go for a walk, and then I do my journal entry. So I've been utilizing that not just as a journal entry, but as a form of therapy. Sometimes I might be going through stuff. That's what I do. So, and again, too, sometimes as a creative tool also. So I came up with this idea because, again, unfortunately, Quan he's not available every Monday, to at least meet up to where we are. And again, Jazz being a new mother, she's not going to always be available to free herself up from being a mother, a full-time mother, to do this. So I said, I need to figure out a way for me, myself, to keep this going. And we'll still have those other things. We'll still do the Young Black and Gifted podcast. The Young Black and Gifted podcast, that's me and Quan. Whenever me and Quan team up, it's going to be me and Quan. The Young Black and Gifted podcast is also going to be where we do our any interviews, any guests we have on the show. It'll be Young Black and Gifted podcast. I already stated to you with Black and Ungifted is with Black and Unscripted. If I said ungifted in the beginning, sorry. Black and Unscripted. That's me and Jazz thing when we want to delve a little deeper. Jazz, her style of content creation and the things that interest her is a little different from mine. We share some of the same interests, but her interests may go beyond some of the things that I'm interested in, and I think it's a great way for me, like to be challenged, on some things. But nonetheless, that's still something that me and Jazz working towards bringing you guys. So in the meanwhile, because those other two things rely on me working with others, this is something I could do myself. So instead of creating it or making it the Young Black and Gifted podcast, I wanted to separate it and call each thing what it is. So whenever you see me sitting here like this, whenever you see that intro, this is not a podcast episode. And I'll tell you where the idea originated from too. So when we first started last year, the way you got to realize I was a manager in corporate America for a while. So I know what it's like to run a team. So one of the things I didn't want to do was burn us out. So we would do 5 straight weeks of recording. And then on the 6th week, we would take a break. Sometimes we do 2-week breaks. But my thing was while we take our break, to still have enough content to release. You know what I'm saying? So the first maybe 2 seasons we released, I did a thing, me and Quan did a thing, I called them a filler episode, where it wasn't a part of neither the seasons, but it was more like an episode to release so that we didn't miss it, because the way our release dates was set up, if we didn't do that, then we would miss a release day. And I didn't want to do that because we had committed to doing things a certain kind of way. So I wanted to make sure that we continued that. So I came up with the idea to do the filler episodes. We did it twice. The first filler episode is with me and Quan. The second filler episode is with Jazz. Did I drop my phone? Nonetheless, this is not a that was they were filler episodes, but I titled them "This is not a podcast episode" because I didn't want what was happening in that episode. We would just talk about the previous season and what are some of our plans and goals for the upcoming season. So me calling it "This is not a podcast episode" was a way for me to separate it from the other episodes. You follow me? So, that's how so basically it was an original idea that I placed elsewhere that I brought back up, and I'm going to give it new life. So my goal here is to give this to come at least once a week. So again, because I talk about consistency, so while we trying to continuously build our platform, I want to make sure that we continuously putting out content. So again, so that a lot of the pressure isn't on, we're not putting no pressure on Quan, ain't no pressure on Jazz. This is what I do. So even if it's for 15, 20, 35 minutes a week, that's what it's going to be. You follow me? I'm going to take a break too, because I got to get myself together. My voice is hoarse. I don't know. I just feel wild, but I'm going to finish my point, and then I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back with my actual show. nonetheless, when we first started our new YouTube channel, again, just me trying to figure out ways to be creative. I said, I'm gonna do this. I got this idea because I wanted to test out putting out content on YouTube because I hadn't done it. So I did this segment where I named it Ignorance is Bliss. And I pretty much talked about my perception of that. I pretty much broke it down and I pretty much just gave my perception of what I mean. If I tell you that and what that means for me or what that means for my people, that's pretty much what that was. So the idea now becomes, so here I am taking multiple ideas that I had in the past, and then I'm going to combine them and I'm going to give you a cluster. I'm going to cluster them together and I'm going to give you one whole full idea, right? So even with that, with the ignorance is bliss, that's a perfect example of what this is not a podcast episode, because I did it apart from the podcast. The same way I'm doing this with you right now, sitting down, talking, conversing with you. I did it the same way. It wasn't a podcast episode, but it was nonetheless, it was content. So that's what I mean by this is not, you're going to see Young Black and Gifted no matter what. Young Black and Gifted, I say Young Black and Gifted till it's over and not stiffen. You feel me? That's what it is with me. You feel me? So, but finding other ways, creating other ways to continuously bring content to you. So here we are. This is not a podcast episode.
Say it again. Look.
Underrated made it.
Hey, look, it might look rough, but the idea's gonna stay fresh, you feel me?